Hi guys, Kristen here. Today I have another lesson for you, a lesson about what it really takes to heal. So if you've been here a while, you know my story. If you haven't been here a while, I invite you to go back and watch some of my old videos to learn my story. But highlights, you know that I have been in a healing journey for many years and I've gone through a relapse recovery cycle for some of that. And every time I healed through that, I used different doctors, practitioners, and supplements to heal. So if I, as one person, needed different specific treatment plans each and every time to heal, why do we think that there is a one-size-fits-all plan that anyone else can follow? So in hindsight, I have pulled apart the lessons in healing that did actually help me heal every single time, all right? The things that were applicable across my entire healing journey, that's what I'm sharing with you guys, okay? And these are what you can start to use wherever you are at in your healing journey. Now, you've probably noticed I am wearing a splint. Quick little story here. I broke both my arm bones back in 2018. And they put in some hardware to just hold things together while it was healing. Now, typically people leave their hardware in for the rest of their lives, but in some cases, cases like mine, there are lingering issues. And they thought that taking out the hardware would resolve those lingering issues. So healing is going well, and we're pretty hopeful that this is going to be resolving all the things that I've been feeling for the past 3.5 years, and that I can get back to using my wrist normally. The lesson I want to share with you today has to do with those doctors and practitioners and supplements, because at the beginning of our healing journey, before we found someone who knows enough about patients like us to guide us through treatment plans, we typically find ourselves in a spot where we have to go it alone for a while as we're searching for that person. Now, it's something I did, but I know it's something that actually put me back as much as it helped me out. There were times when I supplemented with things and they caused me unexpected negative reactions and I didn't understand why. And it wasn't until later, when I did find the right guide, that I learned that I wasn't taking all the right cofactors or I wasn't dosing it right. I also want to say, before I dive into this deeper, that I always encourage putting as much of your time into finding the right guide for your health, whether that's a health coach, maybe that's an acupuncturist in your case, maybe that's a licensed medical doctor in your state. People have healed with all different kinds of support, and it's up to you. It's your job to find the right support for you. I do recommend finding that guidance because supplementation can be so tricky. However, I also acknowledge that until we find that person, there is a real strong feeling of urgency to get better already and to figure this out. And what that leads us to do, a common response to that scenario, is to just try all the things at once. We go online, we read about what helped other people. We hear about somebody getting better after supplementing with iodine. We add iodine to our shopping cart. We learn about acetyl L-carnitine and CoQ10 and different types of magnesium. And suddenly we spend $100 on supplements to try. And as soon as they come in the mail, we're just popping pills to see what works. I've been there myself. I know many of you have as well. And it comes from an honest place. Yet, I need to talk about the downside of this approach because there are real serious consequences to approaching your health this way. Now, at the beginning, you can start 5 supplements and start seeing a new acupuncturist and start a tapping EFT program all in the same week. And maybe a couple weeks go by of your new regimen and you notice you're feeling a little bit better. Maybe you notice you're feeling 10% better and you're like, wow, this is working. I'm going to keep doing it. Okay, but now a month has gone by and you need to buy more supplements and you need to renew your acupuncture subscription, and the costs start mounting and you're hungry for more progress. So you start adding more things in, you start doing more things. And over time, the number of things you're doing becomes logistically, energetically, financially huge, okay? And our personal limits for those things will vary. But at some point, we're going to hit a limit that is so big that we're questioning, is this worth it? And we want to start subtracting things from our regimen, but we don't know what to take away. We don't know what's working. So instead of risking a backslide, we just keep doing it all and we say, okay, it's worth it. Let's just hunker down and keep going. And that works until typically one of three scenarios happens for us. Either we start to notice that our health is actually backsliding. It's not uncommon for symptoms treatments to have unexpected negative consequences on our health. But when we're doing so many things at once, it's hard to pinpoint which one is causing the problems for us. And that is a very frustrating place to be, to feel like we're getting in the way of our own progress as we're working so hard to try to help ourselves. Second scenario that can happen is, we have 12 things going on right now, and suddenly our progress is slowing, and we keep trying to add more things, and we're not seeing the benefits. And everything that we're doing starts to feel too heavy, too weighty. There's just too much going on, and it's not worth it to continue doing this if you're not seeing the benefits. Third scenario that happens is you do keep seeing progress. So you keep hunkering down and saying, okay, this is worth it, I'm feeling better. But over time, the stress of all the money you're spending, of all the time you have to spend, of the time you can't be resting, it all just starts to get so big that you're not sure why you're doing it all, and you keep pushing, and then you kind of burn out on healing. You're doing so many things at once that it has become overwhelming, and you just give it all up in a frustrated moment. Now, the problem with all three of these scenarios is that your healing journey has become unsustainable. These moments bring us to a place of feeling more hopeless. There's a possibility we're burning ourselves out and fatiguing ourselves and making our symptoms even worse through this process. We're not able to stop what we're doing because we don't know what's helping and what's hurting. It drains us financially, emotionally, to have to do all of these things, and it leaves less time for resting. Okay, we've hit an unsustainable wall with this everything all at once approach, and this is the danger of it. Because given enough time, unless you're one of the very few lucky people who just happens to try all the right things right off the bat, you're likely to hit upon one of these walls. And I don't want you hitting a wall and calling it quits and feeling jaded about your healing journey and feeling more hopeless. I want you to find ways to heal that are sustainable, that keep you going through the marathon that is your personal healing journey. So now that I've covered a typical approach to healing when we're doing it on our own, now I want to cover the healthy response to this scenario. Now, like I said before, I want to reiterate, I do recommend waiting to do all of the supplementation and testing until you have a guide. But if you're choosing to go it alone on your own right now, the healthy way to do it is to add in structure and to find patience. I know that's the hardest thing to tell you right now, especially if you're still early in your journey and you're still watching parts of your life slip away. You're trying to avoid leaving work. You're trying to avoid leaving school. Those are the moments that can feel the most dire. And yet, that patience helps us avoid those unsustainable practices. The structure helps us understand the specific positives and negatives from any single treatment that we try. What we need to do is we need to start approaching our healing journey with a little bit of the scientific method. All right, what we do is we start off with a hypothesis. We say, okay, well, this other person had really similar symptoms and they had an iodine deficiency. My hypothesis is that perhaps I have iodine deficiency as well. But we don't go right into treating it from there. First, we do more research. We try to back up our hypothesis with outside information, with highly qualified sources. And then we go into testing. We say, how can I test my hypothesis that I have iodine deficiency? Well, when it comes to a lot of, specifically nutrient deficiencies, there are actual lab work tests for that. In my case, I did 2 different labs and 2 different kinds of tests to confirm my iodine deficiency before I began treating it with iodine. And when both tests agreed that yes, I was deficient, and then yes, that I was actually severely deficient, when I had that validation from the test, that is when I started to supplement with iodine. And that is how I recommend approaching your health. Now, I understand there's not always a test for things. Sometimes relying on research and relying on a little bit of qualified guidance is going to help. And sometimes we need to collect that qualified guidance on our own through multiple online sources. Okay, I'm not saying that this process is easy. It is absolutely not a fast process. It does take more effort. It does take more time. But the result is that you are moving forward in a way that is sustainable. You are moving forward. I know it feels like crawling when you want to be sprinting, but especially if you have severe chronic fatigue as a symptom, as one of the major inhibitors to living your life again, crawling is the pace that is sustainable for us. By crawling, that is how we save energy and hope and time and money. It's how we avoid getting overwhelmed with too many treatments when we don't know what's helping and what's hurting, okay? We know exactly what things are doing. Now, we don't always need to spend a month trialing a new supplement to know how it's impacting us. Sometimes it's as short as a few days. Sometimes it's going to be a couple weeks before you know how a supplement is treating you, but this also slows down your spend rate. If you're only trying a couple new things across each month, then the logistics and the energy and the time are minimized as well. And it leaves you more time for the resting that is also an essential part of your healing journey. So for a quick recap, a really common approach to healing is to just try all the things at once. But that is an unsustainable way to try to heal for the vast majority of us. And I want you feeling as energetic as you can be and as hopeful as you can be so you can keep going on this marathon that is going to be your healing journey, okay? And the healthy way to do that is to add structure into our treatment testing, okay? By approaching it with the scientific method, treating as a hypothesis, looking for supporting information, testing before we begin treating, and then also giving ourselves time and space with each treatment so we can understand how it's impacting our bodies. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of this lesson. I know it's a hard one to implement. I'm not trying to minimize the effort that this takes. It does take quite a bit of effort, and the hardest part here might actually be finding and developing that patience in the healing journey. But I promise you, 6 months down the road, it's the kind of thing that you will be so grateful you did for yourself, even if it is the hardest thing to start in the short term. All right, guys, I'll see you next time.